Hi there, I'm Katie Cat. You might hear Mr. Boots in the background because he is anxious for us to get outside and play before I go to work today. We're just going to go into the cards for this week's Astro Tarot because I'm a little bit tight on time, so I can get out to go to work. But in light of that, if you are feeling like you're missing out on where the celestial bodies are placed this week, then just drop me a message down below and I will make sure to create a video a little later today when I get home from work that details where the celestial bodies are placed for this week. Now, let's talk about the cards. We have 6 cards for this week's Astro Tarot. The opening card of which is the Six of Wands. Now, wands are associated with our will, and as we can see in this card, this person is moving forward in a place of some kind of triumph. So this is someone who is looking forward to new adventure, and they are getting support from those people around them, and they are going on that new adventure based on the past successes that they've had. So there's a call towards moving towards something that we feel triumphant about, or some kind of sense of victory. Now, when we look at where planets are placed currently, we do have Mars currently in the sign of Leo. It's going to be creating some challenges in your life that are stirring your reflection on where you want to put your action, particularly if you have any placements in any of the fixed signs or the beginning degrees of those fixed signs, which would be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Now, what's interesting is we also currently have Pluto in the beginning degrees of Aquarius, so it's going to be experiencing an opposition to that Mars that is currently in retrograde in this place of review around where we put our actions, where we put our energy, and where we put our effort. Now, Mars is going to be showing up for all of us in some house system of our chart, depending on what your rising sign is. So it's going to be bringing you to some kind of place of review around your actions in that area of your life. Now we see this person who is moving forward based on past successes. They're being encouraged to move forward with their community that's around them. Now, we see that there's this wreath of victory that is on their wand. Wands, again, are associated with our will. And so we're being called to move towards something. But consider that we won't get to our goal without some kind of challenge. What's interesting about this week's tarot is that we do have some really strong energies showing up, but it ultimately results in this area of peace and solace and rest. And so I just want to kind of walk us through that energetic, because we start with a 6 and then it goes down to something more simple, more stable, more reliable, so to speak. So here we are moving towards something new, or something that we have some kind of experience with that we feel triumphant from in the past. And yet the challenge that we're facing for this week showed up as the Knight of Cups. So we see someone who's riding a horse that has just one of their hooves kind of slightly lifted, as if they're moving forward in a place of caution. We see this little body of water that is in front of them that they are having to figure out how to navigate over. Kind of like when you are walking along a river or some kind of body of water and you're trying to figure out the safest place to cross that river. Now, in the tarot system, water is always associated with our relationships and with emotional currents, emotional conversations even. So here we see someone who is experiencing some kind of place of caution around kind of figuring out how to pass over this body of water or this emotional experience, so to speak. And this is our challenge. How do we move through it? We have to move through it very purposely, very carefully, and very cautiously. We have to be attentive to our surroundings and all of the variables that surround us. Who knows, maybe down the road there's a little bit of a bridge, but we're trying to figure out the safest place to cross that body of water, aka that emotional precipice of sorts. Now, the way through the card came in by way of the Tower. Now, the Tower is associated with Mars energy. Now, Mars is currently in retrograde. It's going to retrograde to about 17 degrees of Cancer, and then it will start moving forward again. Keep in mind that Mars is going to be retrograding until February 23rd. And then it will, at that point, be in a trine relationship with Mercury, who is going to be conjunct with Saturn. So there's this interplay and this dance that's happening around how we actually kind of take a step back right now in where we put our energy and effort and reevaluate that. And that gets aligned with a conversation that's happening with Saturn over in the sign of Pisces, which currently is at 13 degrees. It's moving forward, but it will be in that trine relationship because it's only going to move a few degrees over the next couple of months with that Mars energy, and it will be in conjunction with Mercury. So it's like a meeting of our inner dialogue, the way we see things, the way we talk about things, and our sense of responsibility and what we want to show up for in life. So there's this conversation happening right now in our own inner world as it meets and reflects on our outer world. Consider that in the Tower card, this is an energy of an unavoidable surprise shift of things. So we see this tower, which is actually referring to the Tower of Babel, where people built up languages and they built this tower thinking that they were going to be getting to something higher. They were going to be able to reach the divine. They were going to be able to reach God itself. And right when they were nearly completed building this tower, a lightning rod came in and the tower crumbled to the ground. And people realized that their true faith and their true connection to the divine didn't depend on this tower that they had to build, but was always something that they had within them. So there's this shift. There's something that we are going to be able to witness, like a flash, like a bolt of lightning, that will give us some kind of awareness in regard to this path that we're crossing and how we want to navigate it. You know, consider that we have this Knight of Cups who's trying to maneuver through this, over this river perhaps, or this creek, and then perhaps a really big storm comes in that makes them reevaluate their path altogether. They have to go to a higher ground to not be swept away by the river, and then they ultimately get redirected to something that was in more alignment with where they want to go. So we have to remember that sometimes these unexpected things that come into our lives are actually an act of the divine in some ways to help realign us with that which we value and that which we are having to move toward. I bring this all up because we have this interesting energy. The outcome of this reading for this week came in by the Hangman. The Hangman is associated with the planet of Neptune and the sign of Pisces because Neptune governs the sign of Pisces. Neptune is actually in the final degrees of Pisces right now. And we see in this card someone who's having to surrender a little bit to a situation, right? They're upside down. They're having to look at life from a new perspective. Perhaps, you know, we see the world, what we perceive as right side up is actually a reversal of how the world actually is. And we see this person's hands are tied and they are in a place of surrender, and all of their energy is flowing upside down to their head, and they're getting kind of this download from the divine because they are in a space of observation. Now, this is an interesting card to show up in a response to the Tower card, because it is in a lot of ways like accepting our situation for what it is, and also allowing ourselves to reflect on the situation and to not waste our energy and our effort until we feel called to move, okay? Because that's the energetic of this card. And so it also reminds me of what I was just speaking of, quite literally, in this retrograde process that's happening with Mars right now, and how it starts to go direct at the end of February, and it will be in this trine relationship with Saturn. So there is this recalibration process that we are experiencing right now as our mind kind of comes to this meeting place with the sense of responsibility and circumstances of where Saturn has been sitting for the last roughly 2 years, because Saturn moved into the sign of Pisces in March of 2023. So this energetic of Saturn in the sign of Pisces has been bringing an awareness of sense of responsibility and sense of time, because Saturn takes roughly 28 to 29 years to move around the whole zodiac system. And so it tends to bring this observation of time and responsibility to our sense of reflection around our lives and where we devote ourselves to and our life path overall, our legacy, because Saturn governs the sign of Capricorn. But again, it is currently in Pisces. So this card, this energetic that we have, this dance between Saturn and Mars, we'll be experiencing for several months, and we'll start to see some forward movement in February, late February, February 23rd to be exact. Now, this card was further clarified by the Page of Pentacles. This is an energetic of, evaluating the different parts of ourselves, what gets triggered by different situations, how we respond to those situations, and ultimately taking in that information so that we can place our attention and our value towards that which we want to build. Consider that Virgo, again, which rules this card, is associated with our day-to-day life, our routines, also our means of health, preventative health, and taking care of ourselves. So we get to see how this circumstance and this situation that we're dealing with ultimately affects us, how we respond to different situations, and ultimately what situations we want to put ourselves in so that we can respond most positively. This is an energetic of stripping the coarse away from the fine and a simulation of things. Consider that Virgo is the sign that governs our small intestine and our digestion of food. So it's like that way in reflection of our lives. Like, what are we digesting? What are we able to take in? What do we take in as valuable? And what do we let go and drop away? Now, that's a process, right? And consider that Mars, after it starts going direct in February, it will be bringing some kind of action and attention to that area of Virgo a few months later. It will actually not be in Virgo until June 19th of 2025. So we'll see how much all of this inner reflection really plays out in how we shift our lives and how we readjust our lives by way of our behavior come June. So this is a long game, right? As life is, it's a long journey, just as these influences are, as these celestial bodies dance with one another. And the ultimate outcome that we have for this reading is the Four of Wands, which I had spoken to in the beginning of the reading, which is a space of safety and security and rest and relief, because there's a stability to it and there's a sanctuary within it, and it brings about some kind of celebration. So even though it may seem kind of tumultuous to be going through, the line of the tower and the experience of the tower, which is getting engaged in this week, it all ultimately will bring us to a place of safety and security. We just have to make sure we put our energy and effort in the arena of that which we want to build, and not let ourselves be sabotaged by where we give our energy away, where it's not valued. So that is our reading for this week. I send you a lot of love, and I will see you again soon. If you'd like me to walk through the placement of the celestial bodies for your own reflection of the star map that you look at every night and every morning, depending on if you wake up early in the morning, leave me a comment below and I will make a recording of that video when I get home from work tonight. I wish you well, and I send you a lot of love in this holiday season, because I know it's a hard season for a lot of us.